Welcome back to our summary of Quran sessions. I hope that you are all well. Yesterday, Sister Summer presented a group of 6 surahs in a beautiful way, highlighting some of the divine messages in it. And I thought there's a lot of thought for food there. You know, you think a lot on what she explained yesterday. And that also reminds me our central theme during the holy month regarding these sessions was where am I in Quran? That is what connection I have with Quran, what relation I have with Quran. Whatever relation we had with Quran, I hope and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that may He make us those that we come out from this month after going through this beautiful journey and can plan a better connection, a better relation with Quran, inshallah ta'ala. Inshallah, if we want to develop a better relation with Quran, we need sessions like these carrying on after Ramadan. We need something for our spiritual boost. We need to keep the spiritual boost, carry on nurturing it throughout the year. And I'm very happy to tell you that the team is really working hard and have produced very good programs for us to carry on after Ramadan. And inshallah, on our last session of this month will be this Thursday. And after the summary, we will be presenting you a little peek, a little trailer of what we have planned, and for you to then register yourself for those sessions and those lessons, inshallah. For now, I would like to invite Summer again, and inshallah would want her to carry on with her summarizing the surahs. Assalamu alaikum, Summer.
Wa alaikum salam.
Okay, I understand you've got quite a few surahs, but you have presented them so beautifully, and I'm sure you'll be doing the same today. So I'm looking forward. Okay, I'll mute myself now.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani wa yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma, Rabbi zidni ilma, Rabbi zidni ilma. Yeah, so like Sister Saba just said, we've got quite a bit. Well, we had a lot. I feel like I had a lot more to cover yesterday. Inshallah, today is one of those sessions where it's one of those ones where, you know, I don't want to say juicy topics, but they're topics that people are intrigued by, such as the Day of Judgment, descriptions of Jannah and Jahannam. And inshallah, we'll be looking at those. And actually, this is only just the start of where the discussions of Jahannam and Jannah and the Day of Judgment come, inshallah, by the end of the week, by tomorrow, inshallah, when Sister Nabila does tomorrow and Thursday, then you'll see a lot more of that. So this is almost like a prelude to what is to come, inshallah. But let's not waste too much time, and let's carry on today, inshallah. So today we're going to be looking at a few themes. Today we're going to be looking at the Jews and hypocrites, which are described in Surah Hashr and Munafiqun. Then we're going to be looking at other creations of Allah that Allah has created, the jinns. And in Surah Najm, there's a beautiful description of Jibreel alayhi salam, and also sort of the way in the interaction between the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Jibreel alayhi salam, which I want to talk about in a bit more depth. And then we've got the Day of Judgment, the resurrection, heaven and hell in these group of surahs. And finally, I'm hoping to leave Surah Mulk on its own as a conclusion, inshallah, because it really nicely encapsulates everything that we have covered over the last 2 days. So let's begin, inshallah. So let's start with Surah Hashr and Surah Munafiqun. Now, let's start with Surah Hashr. Now, the context of Surah Hashr, and this is about a Jewish tribe in the outskirts of Medina. Now, as you may have already learned, outskirts of Medina, there were prominent Jewish tribes. Now, one of them was called Bani Nadir. So to understand what we're about to do about Surah Hashr, we need to understand what were the Bani Nadir, in the sense where what was their status, what was their position. And Bani Nadir had been well established in this area for a number of years, for centuries rather, going back hundreds of, like many generations. And they lived in compact populations outside Medina. So, you know, they were a very tight-knit community, and they were very well fortified. They had, you know, beautiful houses, and in fact, it is described that they had fortresses. They had that, but they had a lot of strength as well. They were very, you know, they were very strong between them. And as the Muslims settled in Medina, they had a treaty with the Bani Nadir and multiple other tribes outside of Medina had a treaty with the Muslims, which entailed that things like, you know, if anyone was to attack the Muslims, these tribes would then come and help. There's this, you know, open communication between them, so on and so forth. So there was this established treaty with the Muslims. This was, of course, as we know, is a formal written treaty that was established. And what actually happened in this situation was that they had, on multiple occasions, they violated this treaty on small elements. It wasn't anything big, but they did violate it here and there. You know, a bit of, I wouldn't say a bit of betrayal. Of course, that is something that is quite serious, but it was a small but consistent betrayals, and then they would apologize to the Prophet ﷺ, and then they'd come back, so on and so forth. And you know, there was an incident that happened that the surah highlights, which really was sort of the icing on the cake, and not icing on the cake in that respect, but in the sense where that was it. That was sort of like the be all end all. That was the deal breaker essentially. And what they did was, you know, they committed such an offense that, you know, that was it. There was no way that this treaty can be withheld, and that was, they plotted to assassinate the Prophet ﷺ, and that was the ultimate breach of trust that they had with the Muslims. So, you know, what happened as a result of this, before this surah was revealed, the Prophet ﷺ told the Bani Nadir to either leave or they will banish them forcefully. So obviously what had happened was that the surah was revealed as a result of Allah trying to reveal this plot of the Bani Nadir to the Prophet ﷺ. So what the Prophet ﷺ did was, okay, you are either going to leave or we are going to hold siege to your town. And what did they do then? They left, they did leave, and they decided to leave because they were worried that the Muslims were going to attack. But in the process of leaving, they destroyed their fortresses and their farms so that no one could take a share in their wealth. Because the instruction given was take as much as only what your hands can hold. Okay, so they, you know, some of them even took as much as their drawers with them. I mean, it was quite bizarre, but they took whatever their hands could hold. But in the process, they destroyed their fortresses and their farms, so nobody could benefit with them or from them either. But okay, so I've given you the context of this surah, but why is this story relevant? What is it that we're trying to learn from this surah? And what Allah is telling us is that essentially these Jews, the Bani Nadir they were followers, they were from the former prophets, they were believers from the former prophets. Okay, so they at one point they were believing. They were essentially what you can argue, you can say they were former Muslims. Okay, but what happened was when they turned their back on religion and morality and adopted this hostile attitude towards Muslims and to the, you know, and succumbed to their selfish desires, and they didn't show any sort of notice or regard for treaties and agreement, that is when Allah turned His grace away from them. And that's why then the instruction was given for them to, the Muslims to either for them to leave, or that the community the Muslims would hold them under siege. So, from this we can learn that, for those, if we oppose the truth consciously and consistently, and we place our reliance on wealth and power, and we think that this wealth and power can save us from the divine punishment, then, we're fooled. This is not the attitude that we should adopt. And often relating back to what we were saying yesterday about how, you know, we should try and spend our wealth for the sake of Allah. That's exactly what the Bani Nadir were not doing. Their wealth and their power and their strength really got to them to the point where they thought, oh, we can actually go as far as assassinating the Prophet and nothing's going to happen to us. That is the attitude that they had. And sometimes we see this, you know, okay, maybe not something that severe, but we sometimes see elements of this in our life as well, where we think, you know, when something good has happened or we are in a position of power, we think that this is all from ourselves, and we don't realize that actually it is Allah who has given this power to us and this wealth to us and this authority of us. And, you know, we are there, you know, and if we fall into the neglect of the religion, then Allah's grace will turn away from us. Allah will no longer have mercy on us. You know, so we need to be very conscious of this. So that was pretty much Surah Hashr in a nutshell, to be honest. And I'll refer to Surah Hashr towards the end of this session as well. There's a beautiful description. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful ayahs in Surah Hashr, but my ayah of the day will come from this surah, inshallah. So we'll talk a bit more about that in the later towards the end. Now let's move on. So we've talked about this tribe, this tribe of Bani Nadir. Let's now have a look at the Munafiqun. And Surah Munafiqun, the hypocrites, is just full of explanation and description of the characteristics of a hypocrite. And while I'm going through this session, I really want you guys to think, do I fall into one of these categories? Do I even hold an ounce of hypocrisy within me? And, you know, maybe we can use this as a means of reflection, inshallah. So the first thing that munafiqs do is that they bear witness to the message, but it has no impact on their actions, and it does not reflect in their actions. So that is the most, you know, they say La ilaha illallah from the tongue. From the outside they are Muslims, but inside, are they really Muslim? Are their actions is their belief reflected in their actions? The second one is that they shelter behind oaths, and what this means is that they use oaths to convince others of their faith. So the best is, you know, for example, if you are, let's just take an example of, I'm trying to think of an interesting example. Let's just say you're trying to convince someone of something that you didn't steal. Say you stole something and you're trying to convince people that you didn't steal, okay? What is that person going to do? They're going to try and say, they're going to be like, Wallah, I didn't steal, I swear to God I didn't. And they exaggerate, don't they? They push it. They really you can tell that this person is really trying hard, and you can tell that there's hidden meanings behind their oaths and their swearing, you know, and the oaths that they take. And you can tell that this person is probably not being genuine. You know, their oaths are just trying to cover, there's something hidden, they're trying to cover something up. And this is what Allah is referring to. You know, so they're trying to convince others. They'll be like, I swear to God, I believe in Allah. Wallahi, I believe in Allah. Allah, la ilaha illallah. And they're trying to convince people of their faith so much that the other person is thinking, all right, you know, you can calm down. Like, we understand, but this is element of, this is a bit strange. Why are they being excessive while they're giving this oath? And the hypocrites used to do this to save themselves from the wrath of the Muslims, because they knew that if they came clean, of course the Muslims were gonna, you know, they were going to either take them out to Medina. They would, you know, the Muslims were going to potentially retaliate. So this is what they used to do. They used to shelter behind their oaths. The next thing that the Munafiqun did was they believed and then disbelieved. And what this means is, and we learned about this multiple places in the Quran as well, is that they would say they believe, and then they do something, and then they turn to the Prophet and be like, oh no, I'm so sorry, this is never going to happen again, this won't happen again, I promise this won't happen again. And then they believed, but then they disbelieved again, and this was a sort of a rotation, this was a cycle that would continue and what happens, I'm sure you might remember that what happens when a person consciously disbelieves and then consciously says sorry, knowing that they're going to disbelieve again. Allah seals their hearts. And that's what they used to do. So they would believe, and then they would disbelieve, and then believe again and disbelieve, and this continuous cycle eventually led them to their hearts being hardened. So, you know, and so what the way Allah describes them in the verse that talks about this is that their power of understanding has been completely lost, and their moral sense has become dead, because they're just saying things for the sake of saying it. There's no understanding. There's no sort of focus and there's no notice of what they're saying. Now, there are many pieces of timber against the wall. Now, this is the exact description that Allah mentions in the Quran about the munafiqun. And let's go to what a timber is. A timber is a piece of metal that is used to like erect a wall. And it is used to, it is used to create a wall, isn't it? It's almost like the foundational pieces. But if I just put a timber there in front of you, does that create a wall? It doesn't. We use a lot of timber to create a wall entirely. So timber is just a piece of the puzzle. But what is Allah describing here? He's saying he's just pieces of timber against the wall, meaning that there's no substance to it. So munafiqun, Allah is comparing them to a timber because it's worthless. What the munafiqun needs to do, some of them hypocrites, were very noble in society, right? They were very noble people. Not noble, I mean they were very elite members of society. And they used to be in the company of the Prophet ﷺ, reclining on their couches, and they'd be sat there, having a very in-depth conversation with the Prophet ﷺ, sounding very convincing, sounding very, authoritative, and, sounding very, agreeing to everything the Prophet ﷺ was saying, and on the surface, you'll think, wow, this person is speaking with so much wisdom. But actually, they're just pieces of timber against a wall, meaning whatever they're saying has no substance. A block of timber that has just been placed against a wall serves no purpose. And they're just there. Timber would only be useful when it's been utilized in making something. But they're not being utilized for anything. So that's why Allah describes them as just a piece of timber against the wall. It's useless. There's nothing there. There's no substance. The next point that Allah uses to describe them is they shake their heads in pride upon hearing the invitation of forgiveness. So what they do is that not only do they refuse to come to the Prophet to ask for forgiveness or to ask for forgiveness, but actually they also shake their head in pride. They shake their head in arrogance and pride because they can't bring themselves to come to the Prophet and admit their mistakes. They can't. They just can't. And when the Prophet is encouraging the Muslims to repent for their forgiveness, the munafiqun will just be like, no, I can't. No, it's too embarrassing. I can't. How can someone like me, approach the Prophet and confess that I've done X, Y, and Z? And how can I be so embarrassed and ashamed in front of the Prophet And it was seen as it was disgraceful for them to go and seek for forgiveness. And lastly, they do not spend in the way of Allah. And this is a really important one because, of course, we were looking at this yesterday. They didn't. They were so engrossed in their power and their wealth that they hesitated to spend in the way of Allah. They would make excuses. They would be like, oh, but that money needs to go somewhere else. Or maybe I need to use this money in another for something else, etc. And they would just make excuses and to prevent themselves from spending in the way of Allah. And then at the end, they will come back and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I should have spent this much money, and I'm so sorry that I couldn't. Again, they're coming back to this idea of sheltering behind their robes and believing and then disbelieving. So let's just have a look, and I'm just going to give you a few seconds just to have a look at all these points here. Is there anything that we do in our life that we might fall into these categories? Are we pieces of timber? Do we feel disgraced when we need to go and seek for forgiveness? Is our belief reflected in our actions? Do we continuously say oaths for no reason, trying to convince someone of something that's not really there? Are we being hasty in the way that we spend in the way of Allah? These are all elements that we need to think about. And from this, I'm also going to let you guys know is that there's also 4 signs of a hypocrite. And the first one, this is hadith, is where when someone entrusts them, they will break that trust. When they speak, they lie. When they promise, they break their promise. And when they fight, they cross every limit, meaning that they go above and beyond that was necessary when they fight. And sometimes I personally think that maybe I do fall in these categories. Maybe when, maybe sometimes have I lied? When I speak, do I lie? Have there been situations where I've broken promises? So have there been times where maybe I feel like this money needs to go somewhere else, which might seem more important than spending in the way of Allah? You know, these are all elements we were just speaking on. So Saba was talking about, where am I in the Quran? God forbid, are we here? This is something that we really need to reflect, because even anyone with just an ounce of hypocrisy, they won't receive Allah's mercy. So we need to be very, very conscious of this. So let's move on now. So from these two examples, Allah is asking us, are we using our wealth correctly? And are we the hypocrites of our community? So that's something that we really need to reflect, and we need to ask ourselves. Are we acting really, really good on the outside, but on the inside we just think, you know, what is this religion? Why am I doing this? Now, let's move on now. And we talked about other types of creation. So we've spoken about the Jews, we've spoken about the hypocrites. Now, these two surahs, I'm not going to go into too much detail, because I know jinn's a bit of a hot topic as well sometimes. I'm not going to focus too much on like going into too much depth, but inshallah, Surah Jinn will give you Surah Najm talks about Jibreel alayhi salam, and Surah Jinn talks about the qualities of jinn and the interaction the Prophet ﷺ had with jinns. So let's start with Surah Najm first. And Jibreel alayhi salam here is described very beautifully, actually. And the Prophet ﷺ saw Angel Jibreel alayhi salam twice in his real form. So that was, the first time was at the time of revelation, and the second time was Isra wa Miraj. And actually, this entire passage, there is an entire passage in Surah Najm where it is described how the angel Jibreel approached the Prophet ﷺ. So initially, Angel Jibreel came in his real form, and he had covered the entire horizon. And Angel Jibreel has 600 wings. So it covered, when the Prophet ﷺ saw him, it covered the entire horizon. And then Angel Jibreel came a little bit closer. And then he came a little bit closer. And then he came a little bit closer to the point where he was only an arrow, like a bow and arrow's length away from the Prophet ﷺ. And Angel Jibreel alayhi salam is also described here as very, very powerful. He has destroyed nations previously. He's very powerful. And as I mentioned, when Prophet saw him, the whole sky was covered. The entire horizon was covered. And at the time of the first revelation, he came as close as the length of an arrow. So this is pretty much all there is in Surah Najm that describes the Angel Jibreel alayhi salam. Of course, I would recommend that you go away and do a little bit more research. I mean, something if you're interested in angels, actually, Omar Suleiman these days is doing a beautiful series on angels in your presence, which I think is, I'd highly recommend, where he talks about angels within us and within, how they protect us and so on and so forth, which ties in nicely to, what I'm talking about right now. But that's pretty much all we have for Surah Najm, inshallah. And then let's look at the description of the jinni described in Surah Jinn. Now, this is the narration actually, which is, Surah Jinn is an interesting surah, because what happens here is that Allah is narrating the narration of jinn. So if, in some way, when you read it, it is actually like it's the story of the jinns written by the jinns. And it describes a conversation with the Prophet ﷺ. Now we know that Allah has created human and jinn, and there are things that the jinn can do things, certain things that humans can't do. They are in our presence. We can be surrounded by jinn, but this is a fact, and we know that Allah has told us that they are amongst us. Now, jinns who are believers also acknowledge Allah is one and doesn't have any partners, and they are the believing jinn. And the believing jinns who accepted Islam at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, even they reaffirmed that jinns recognize the false assumptions disbelieving jinn make within their own community. So the same way believing humans like us, alhamdulillah, recognize someone who is idol worshipping, we acknowledge that they are doing the wrong, they're disbelievers. So jinns also within their own community recognize the disbelieving jinn, and they recognize that they are the ones who are not believing in Allah. And another description of this, which is actually in Surah Mulk, and I'm going to quote the ayah in just a second, inshallah, is that jinns, especially the disbelieving jinns, they sit in secret hidden places in the sky to find out matters of the unseen. So as we know, jinns can fly, they are a very different species to us. And they try and approach the highest heaven. They try and almost eavesdrop into what's happening in the heavens. And what is that the angel, they are then cast away by the angels by what we understand as shooting stars. And this is reaffirmed in Surah Mulk. When Allah says, we have adorned the lower heaven with lamps, and we have made them a means to drive away the shayateen, and we have prepared for them the chastisement of the blazing fire. So we know that, and what a lot of scholars have also agreed on is that the shooting stars is what the angels use to drive away the shayateen. So I just want to, of course, make it clear that all this Western ideology and astrology about wishing on a shooting star, we should not engage in those activities. And we understand the real reason why we sometimes see shooting stars. Okay, so that is just a small bit of clarification that I wanted to make. And finally, jinns understand that they can never outrun Allah. Okay, and this is even the disbelieving jinns. They understand that. They understand that they have more powers than humans. Yes, they can do more things than humans. And there are some humans which interact with jinn, but they can never ever outdo Allah. So, and they acknowledge that completely. And of course, we understand that it's the disbelieving jinn who try and interact and do shirk with the humans. And humans, in order to then interact with jinn, need to commit a very, very high level major sin. And inshallah, none of us should even think about going down that route, because that is a major form of shirk. But my point is that they understand that Allah is ultimately the authority over everyone, and they understand this as well. Now that alhamdulillah, I'm doing, I think I'm pretty good for time. We've got enough time now, inshallah, to speak about the Day of Judgment. Now, the next the next group of surahs are going to be completely about the hereafter, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on this with talking about the structure of the Day of Judgment, inshallah. And actually, before I begin, for those of you who may want to do some further research on this, I read a book quite a few years ago now. It's in Urdu, but there is an English version. I think the Urdu, some Urdu is very poetic, and the way that they described it in Urdu was very beautiful, but English is, of course, just as good. And in Urdu, if you understand, it's called Jab Zindagi Shuru Hogi. That translates to when life will begin. And it is, I can't remember who the author is. Maybe at the end, one of the sisters can, if they know which book I'm talking about, they can interfere. But I would definitely recommend you go away and read that book. And I'm sure if you put it in Google, you'll find a PDF version. But it is so beautiful because it outlines in a narrative form as a novel the structure of the Day of Judgment, from the moment of resurrection to Jahannam to Jannah, in such exquisite detail. And it is really, really a beautiful book. So I would really recommend that you go and read that. I'd highly recommend it. So anyway, inshallah, let's begin. Now, let's start talking about the Day of Judgment first. So this is the process of the Day of Judgment, not the actual court of Allah, but rather the process of the Day of Judgment. So what's going to happen, the first thing that we are going to hear is we're going to hear a trumpet, and it's going to sound in a single blast. And we know from narrations that there will be two trumpet sounds. There will be one which will kill us, or it will make us all die. It will destroy everything. We will all die. And the second one will be us being resurrected. Okay, so there are two trumpet sounds, and this is I've put where which surahs these ayahs or these descriptions come from as well. And it is also narrated actually that the sound of the trumpet will be so close, it will be as if it's right next to our ear. So it's going to be extremely loud, and it's going to be so loud that it will cause us to die. So that is the trumpet. That's the sound of the trumpet. And then, as you know, what will happen as a result of this? The mountains will be crushed to powder. The mountains will be crushed to powder. So literally nothing. So the mountains will look like dyed tufts of wool. It will be weightless. But can you imagine something so strong, something that holds the earth down will be just like wool? And we know how soft wool is. That's what it will become like. It will become like powder. And the mountains will be violently flying about. So when they are completely, I mean, that's an expansion of what will happen when they become powder, when they become wool so weightless that they can just be flying around. they'll just be, you know, they'll just vanish. They'll become so thin. And the other description Allah gives us is about the sky. And Surah Rahman, Surah Tur, all these describe the color of the sky. The sky will swell, flutter, and rotate and swing, and it will turn like molten brass. And in Surah Rahman, it's actually described as a murky red oil, rose-colored oil. It's actually like this picture. That's why I've chose it. It's like a murky red color, and it will be continuing to change color. So almost like, you know, if you've ever watched animated movies where, you know, there's like a villain that's come and the sky's gone all red and it's changing from red to orange to yellow to black to blues, hints of blues. That's what it will look like. It will turn red like molten brass. So, but there's this element of metallic colors and torn apart, subhanAllah. I mean, this is so difficult for us every day. We see it up, like how is the sky going to be torn? Well, only Allah knows, and may Allah save us from catastrophes of that day. And then once all of these things will happen, and once we have died, then we will be resurrected. We will be resurrected, and let's see what happens. Upon resurrection, our two angels on our shoulders will take into their custody. And I want you guys to really picture the image here, because this is very similar to what we see in modern day court cases. We have, so say for example, there's a person that's come out of prison, there's always a guard who is escorting this person, right? This is the same imagery. The two angels that are present on our shoulders, they will take us into their custody. They are going to be our guards. And one angel will escort us, and the other angel will hold our book of deeds. So just hold on a second there and just think about this. You're in your grave and you've been resurrected, and you see your two angels from your shoulders. One is stood in front of you, another behind you holding a book of deeds. And you are being taken, you are being escorted to the court of Allah. Okay, and then let's see what's going to happen. Then the angel with our book of deeds will present it to Allah by saying, this person's record needs to be examined. So we will be taken to the court of Allah. So think of a modern day court. We are escorted into the court. And what does the lawyer do? What does the defendant or the persecutor do? Right? They take the lawsuit, they take the files, and they present it to the judge, don't they? Be like, yep, this is the documents, here you go. And that's what the angels are going to be doing. We'll be presented into the court of Allah. The angel with our book of deeds will be like, Ya Allah, these are this is this person's deeds, this person's record needs to be examined. And then Allah will be examining. And when our record will be examined, Allah will put us into three categories. And we will be put into the righteous people, the people of the right hand, and the people of the left hand. And we're going to talk about each of these individually, inshallah. But I'm going to talk about the people of the left hand first. So Allah will read out. So let's continue with this imagery of this bad person, because this is obviously a person with the left hand, someone who has not been good. So what happened just now, the angel passed on the deeds or the files to Allah, the judge, and Allah will look through the book, or look through the book of deeds and the files, etc. And even Allah will read out the offenses of these people. So they will say, so and so, you are arrogant, you prevented good, you acted aggressively, you instilled doubt, you did shirk. You are now going to be taken to the hellfire. That's a really scary image. Think about when you see a court case and the judge has listed and has read out the list of offenses, read out the offenses of criminals. They plead guilty, don't they? Often they plead guilty. But with that, what do? They cry. Some of them try and justify themselves. Some of them know they've done wrong. So they think, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Some of them want to say their last words to their family before they're taken back into prison. And this is exactly what's going to happen here. You know, Allah will read out the offenses of these people, and He will be commanded, Allah will make the verdict, so and so, you have been commanded to spend time, to go to the hellfire. That is your verdict. And then look at what happens. the man will blame Shaitan for his misdeeds, and Shaitan will be there too. So the same way in a modern day court, maybe the person, the criminal, will try and just be like, no, but this person committed the crime. That person is the one to blame. It's not me. And this is what man will do with Shaitan. He will turn to Shaitan and be like, you made me do this. And Shaitan will say, no, I did not incite him to rebel. It wasn't me. I just gave him the idea. He's the one who did it. And the Shaitan and man will be disputing amongst each other. So I hope you guys are getting a really vivid image of what's going to be happening. Remember, let's start from the beginning if you've lost me. So we'll be resurrected. The angels on our shoulder will be escorting us. One angel escorting us, one behind us who will be holding our book of deeds. We come to the court of Allah. The angel with our book of deeds presents the files to Allah. And Allah goes through them, or of course he knows, and he will read out the list of offenses. That this is what you are accused of, or this is what you have done, not accused, this is what you have done. And the person, and he will say, you will be commanded, you will be taken to the hellfire, this is your verdict. Then all of a sudden man will be like, no, I don't deserve to go to Jahannam, Shaitan made me do this. And then Shaitan will be like, no, I didn't make him do that. And then Shaitan and man are having this discussion, this dispute amongst each other. And then Allah will say, no, don't argue in my presence. A bit like a judge hitting his gavel. Don't argue in my presence. You both knew the consequences. Man knew the consequences, Shaitan knew the consequences. And then man will lower his eyes in dejection and humiliation. Because he knows he can't do anything. And even then, man will try to give his children, his spouse, his brother, his friends, and everyone on earth as ransom, be like, take them, take all my wealth, take everything. But that's not going to work in the eyes of Allah. So just imagine you in that situation. Who, God forbid, may Allah save us from this, that we are in the position where we are sat in the court of Allah and this is what's happening to us. It's literally like a movie. You can see it. You can see this happening in front of you. You know, even criminals, they'll say things like, I'll give you £500,000. I'll bail me out, try me, to take everything. I just don't want to go back. I don't want to be sentenced for life. I don't want to do this. That's exactly what man will do. But there's no respite here. This is the day of judgment. Khalas. Everything is finished. There's no second chances. This is not the court of this dunya anymore. This is the court of Allah. There is nothing that man can do. And then man will say, if only my record didn't come back to haunt me, money and riches have done me no good. So think about it, you know, when the criminal leaves and he makes his last plea or he makes his last statement before he leaves the court, this is what will happen in the divine court of Allah. He will just curse himself. He'll be like, oh, if only my record didn't come back to haunt me. If only these files were kept hidden. Wealth has done nothing to me. And the angels will tie him at the neck with a chain which has a length of 70 segments. So you know those little segments on a chain, 70 of those. So hopefully this is still adding to your imagery that he's been sentenced to life in Jahannam. Man has had this discussion with Shaitan trying to blame him. He's told Allah that he's going to give Allah all his riches, but that's not going to work. And now he's being tied, ready to go to Jahannam. And he will also be seized by the forelocks and the feet. So his neck is going to be chained. His forelocks are going to be chained, and his feet, he will be held by the angels will seize him. And no one is going to help him. And he will have no friends that day. No one. Think about how helpless someone in court feels when they're a criminal, when no one can just stand up and be like, I'll save you. Think of that, but 100, 200 times worse, even worse. And then he will be thrown into Jahannam with a violent thrust. You know, like at the end of, when a person has been, sent back to prison, what do? Do they nicely escort him into prison? No, they chuck him in, don't they? Even if it's like a really hard push, they thrust him back into prison, like, go, stay there for life. Imagine the thrust of the angels and of Allah on the Day of Judgment, thrown into Jahannam, not even prison, Jahannam. Go. And when they will be cast into it, they will hear it roar as it boils. Like, this is really scary. They will hear it roar. Look at the imagery Allah is using to describe Jahannam. It will roar. Like, think about a lion when it roars. And I mean, we've seen it maybe on TV. If you've been lucky enough to go to safari, maybe that you've seen it roar. But if you're stood right next to the lion and it roars, it's scary. And the word that Allah, the Arabic word Allah uses here is the word shahiq. And it's used, and often it is used for like a donkey's braying. So, you know, when a donkey is in distress and it brays, that's the word that is used here. But that word may also mean that this also means that it can be the sound of Jahannam itself, so that Jahannam will roar as it boils, or it can also be interpreted as the people who are flung into it will be screaming and crying. So they will then bellow. So it goes both ways. As though it will burst with rage. Every time a multitude is cast into it, its keepers will ask them, did no warner come to you? You know, the keepers of Jahannam, and it's interesting, the keeper of Jahannam is an angel, and the job of this angel is not to smile. Allah has not taught this angel to smile. So think about how scary the keeper of Jahannam is. And he will ask, did no warner come to you? And what will happen is that the people will not even reject this. They won't even deny the fact that no warner came to them. This is almost like a rhetorical question, like so that, you know, the person would be made to realize that no injustice has been done to them, that this is really their resting, this is their this is their end, this is where they are destined to be. They will say, yes, a warner came to us, but we gave the lie to him and said, Allah has revealed nothing, you are surely in huge error. So the people will admit. They're having this conversation with the keeper of Jahannam, and he's just telling them that did no warner come to you? And they will admit that yes, the messenger came, but we lied to the messenger. And we said, Allah has revealed nothing. And Allah is saying, you are surely in huge error because you're about to be violently thrusted into hell. They will say, if only we had listened and understood, we would not be among the inmates of the blazing fire. You know, there's a small lesson that we can learn from here as well. If we know that there is someone that is telling the truth, who are you kidding? Who are you fooling? Allah knows everything. And if you lie to people now about anything, it will come to surface on the Day of Judgment. The hypocrites, they think that, then we'll talk about the hypocrites in just a minute, but the hypocrites, they will actually be taken as far as the bridge. Yeah, I'm sure you guys have read about the bridge that is made of that has the thickness of just a hair, and we on this bridge we'll cross this bridge in order to go to Jannah, inshallah, and Allah will take them to that point. And as soon as they're about to go on this bridge, Allah will put a barrier that no, you fooled other people on this dunya. I made you come to this bridge, and I've put this barrier here now. You cannot go further. It's almost like this, Allah is giving a false hope. So if we think that we can give others and we can lie to others in this dunya, all of that will come to surface. And then, God forbid, that we are in a position where we say that if only we listened and understood, we would not be among the inmates of the blazing fire. All the truth, every single lie will come to surface on that day, and Allah sees everything. Thus they will confess their sins. Damned are these inmates of the blazing fire. Allah curses them. Allah curses them here. They will confess their sins. Eventually, they won't confess on this dunya, but they will eventually. And think about it. These ayahs were revealed to the people of the Quraysh, the kuffar of Makkah, and they still did not take heed. They still didn't believe. They still thought, oh no, whatever, it doesn't matter, etc. These are just lies. These are just, they're mocking these ayahs. And then let's look at the description of Jahannam when they are in Jahannam. Jahannam is a fierce flame, a shade of thick, pitch black smoke. Often when we think of smoke, we think of, it's very, very dense. However, there's still this element of, if a person comes near enough, you can still just about make them out, right? But a shade of thick, pitch black smoke, the smoke will be black. It will be completely black. Smoke of this dunya, when we see it, it's a bit grayish, a bit whitish. This is just black. You can't see anything. So Jahannam, being thrown in Jahannam with a combination of it being black. How scary is that? You don't even know where you're going. You don't know what is destined for you. It's this idea of just ignorant. You just don't know. Often we see of house fires, and people who pass away in house fires don't even realize that their house is on fire, because often some house fires happen at night, and they just can't tell the difference between the two. A shade of thick black smoke. It is not soothing or cool. It will strip off the scalps. Our scalps in this dunya are very hard, right? I mean, that's a very tough bone. And Allah is just saying it's going to strip it off. We strip paper. And that's the description Allah is giving about Jahannam. Astaghfirullah, it will strip it off. They will eat from the tree of Zaqum and fill their bellies with it. The tree of Zaqum will be grown, is a tree in Jahannam that is grown from, and its roots are in Jahannam. It's, the roots, it comes from the depths of Jahannam. And it is said that if the sap of Zaqum, even one drop of sap touches this dunya, the entire dunya will be destroyed. And these people will eat from the tree of Zaqum. And they're going to fill their bellies with it. They will drink boiling water, drinking it as thirsty camels do. They will drink it, but it's not going to give them any relief, because it's not soothing or cool. And they're going to keep drinking it because they've got no other option, but that's not giving them any respite. That's not giving them any sukoon. And they'll be circulating between Jahannam and the boiling water and the tree of Zaqum. So think about this. I just want everyone to think about this for just a second. Na'udhu billah, we're in Jahannam. I just want you to picture this imagery. I want you to understand the vivid imagery Allah is using here. It is going to be pitch black and it's going to be hot, fierce flame. It's not cool. It's nothing but awful. And you're going to feel hungry, so you're going to go to the tree of Zaqum. You're going to try and eat something, but that's not going to give you any sort of sukoon in you. You're going to go and try and drink some water because you've just eaten something that's so hot. You've eaten something that's literally burning your throat. So you're going to run to drink some water. Do you want some water? So you go and drink some water, but it's boiling water. And that's not giving you any sukoon. Then you're going to go back to Jahannam and think, maybe this is going to give me some sort of respite. But that's not going to do. It's this constant agitation and aggravation and everything that you're trying to do to make things easy for yourself is just making it worse. And they will receive no food except the filth from the washing of the wounds. That makes you gag. That's like the stuff, the pus and the skin and the blood and the flesh that comes out of wounds. Like if you've ever cut yourself or if you've popped a pimple, all that filth. So just think about this on a rotation. You're going to eat. You're going to try and fill your belly with it. That's not going to work. You're going to drink water to give you some sort. That's not going to work. You're going to go to Jahannam and think, oh, maybe this is going to give me, maybe this is less than what I've just experienced, but that's not going to work. You will be given food, which is like just the filth from wounds, and that's just not going to work. And Allah will then say, these are the ones who turned their back and retreated from the message. They amassed wealth and hoarded it. They used to scoff at the message. They lived in luxury in this dunya without spending for the sake of Allah. And one more point that Allah mentions is that they are going to be the ancient ones who came from before and all of the ones that are from recent times. So they are all the disbelievers, all the people of the left hand, people from before and all of them from recent times, including us. May Allah save us from this reality, because this is just horrific. Yeah, there's a lot of literature and a lot of really, really vivid imagery. I can't go into too much detail. And inshallah, in the next couple of days, you will also hear a bit more about the Day of Judgment as well, inshallah. But it's just terrifying. And then Allah will ask Jahannam if it is full. And it will say, are there more? Bring them. Bring them. So Allah is having a conversation with Jahannam. And there's two ways this can be interpreted. Either Jahannam will be looking forward to it. There's more, bring them in. Or Jahannam will say it as if in shock. There's more. Okay, bring them. But Allah will question Jahannam, and Jahannam will keep getting full and full and full. And Allah will keep asking, are you full yet? Are you full yet? And Jahannam will keep saying, there's more, bring them, bring them. May Allah save us from the fire of Jahannam. Really, truly, sisters, it's very, very scary. So we've spoken about what these surahs have said about the people of the left hand. Now let's have a look at, inshallah, the righteous people and the people of the right hand. Let's take a deep breath. And inshallah, let's hear some glad tidings. Let's hear some good news, inshallah. Now, one more thing that I want to mention before the people of Jannah go into Jannah. On the Day of Judgment, I was just mentioning about this bridge. When we'll be crossing the bridge, Allah will grant the believers nur. Okay, so light, which will come from their good deeds. Okay, so in correlation with how many good deeds people did, that's how much nur, how much light we will be given with. Okay, and and it is actually narrated, and I'm going to paraphrase this hadith, is that the Prophet ﷺ said that some people will have nur as much as from Medina to Yemen, and some will have nur up until their feet only. So you can see that some of the believers will have, and Medina to Yemen is a very, very big distance. You're talking about like two different countries, Saudi Arabia and Yemen, massive, massive distance. So some people will have nur that will go from Medina all the way to Yemen. And some will have nur that only comes up to their feet. So we should, our good deeds will be translated into the form of light and nur, which will guide us on this bridge. And so the believers will have nur running in front of them, which will guide us. It's almost, that because it's going to be in this part of the Day of Judgment, it's going to be pitch black. And the only thing that will guide us across this bridge will be this light. And this is the only form of light. The nur of the akhirah is such that no one else can benefit from the nur of others. And actually, the hypocrites here will ask the believers, and they will come and say, please let us borrow some of that nur. And what will the believers say? The believers will say, did we not used to pray with, the hypocrites will say, did we not used to pray with you and, be with you in this dunya? And the believers will say, yes, but you were doubtful. You listened to your desires and shaitan made you go astray. So the believers will not share their nur. And that is when Allah will put a barrier in front of the munafiqun. So inshallah, may Allah make us of those who have nur, who will have a lot of nur that will guide us onto this bridge and will take us across, inshallah. So let's now have a look at when these people go into Jannah, inshallah. Inshallah, may Allah make us one of them. So in Surah Rahman and Surah Waqi'ah, actually, Allah beautifully describes the ranks of Jannah. And this is so beautiful because, and you know what's amazing about this? Is the fact that the imagery that Allah uses and the words that Allah uses as well in order to describe this. So we have the people who are righteous, but then we have the people of the right hand. So righteous, we're looking at the sabiqun, the people of utmost righteousness, and then the good people, the people of the right hand. So the righteous, the first thing we know about them is that a large number of them will be from previous nations. So there will be many, many people from those before, many, many righteous people, and there'll be fewer from recent nations. May Allah make us from one of them. And people of the right hand, there will be lots of people from the previous nations and lots from us as well, from our recent nations as well. Okay? And the right, I just want you to, if you're looking at my PowerPoint, I just want you to look at the description, even if it's just the adjectives. The Arabic does not compare to the translation. I would really recommend you go and have a look at the Arabic, inshallah. And the righteous will have gold encrusted couches, reclining face to face. And the people of the right hand will have upraised couches, reclining on green cushions. Can you guys perhaps guess which one is the high rank of Jannah? It's the people of the righteous. Carpets lined with rich brocade, and the people of the right hand will have splendid carpets. This is not to say that Jannah is going to be a little less, but what this is saying is that even in Jannah, there's going to be ranks. There will be people who will have just that bit extra. Although both Jannahs will be beautiful, they will be filled with whatever we desire, but this Jannah of the Sabiqun, of the righteous, will just be that little bit better. Young youths will bring drinks from fountains in goblets, pitchers, and cups. And actually, so much so that we, inshallah, in Jannah, people, as the drinks are going around, people of Jannah will be discussing with each other, oh, let me taste it, let me taste that drink, let me taste your drink, let me eat from this fruit that you have, let me eat that you have, let me taste some of that, please, or please share some with us. And that's, these are the conversations of Jannah. That's what we will be, inshallah, discussing. Like we sometimes do even in this dunya, if you see, like if you go to a restaurant and you've seen one of your siblings or your friends order a really, really nice drink, you think, oh, can I just have a sip of that, please? But that's what we're going to be doing. So these young youths will be coming to us. They're going to be, serving us these drinks in goblets and pitchers and cups. And amongst the people of Jannah, they will be discussing that, oh, wow, that drink looks great. Can I have a sip, please? So they're going to be engaging in that sort of conversation, playing with each other, not playing, but, discussing each other's food. Fruits at easy reach of every kind in doubled pairs. So 2 of every single kind of fruit that even our mind doesn't comprehend. Abundant fruits, dates, and pomegranates. Subhanallah. Free-flowing springs. And I'm going to give you a description, inshallah, in just a minute about these springs of Jannah. And gushing water with cool water. And wide-eyed maidens, beautiful as pearls, hidden in their shells, rubies and coral. In another place in the Quran, Allah describes the hur, the hur of Jannah, to be as delicate as eggshells. They're just so petite, so delicate, and maidens good and fine in sheltered tents. It is also in the Quran that the people of the right hand will also, they will both, of course, but the people of the right hand will also have their spouses to enjoy all this with as well, inshallah. So you can kind of just gauge the rankings of Jannah by this, and to better understand this, Surah Rahman and Surah Waqi'ah are the best descriptors of Jannah. And actually, if you ever get an opportunity to do an in-depth tafsir of Surah Rahman, it is just so beautiful. Honestly, it's life-changing because you just think, subhanallah, especially for the description of Jannah. And this is what I was discussing about the mountain. And this is the parable of paradise, which Allah describes. And it shall be rivers of incorruptible water, rivers of milk unchanging, and rivers of wine, a delight to those that drink, and rivers of pure honey. They will have every kind of fruit as well as forgiveness from their Lord. Can such be like those who will abide in the fire and will be given water to drink that will tear their bowels apart? So this is in Surah Muhammad. We talked about this yesterday, but this is, the water of milk, the river of water and milk. It will not, often rivers of this dunya, there's a lot of, it'll become discolored, or, it'll just become very nasty over some time. I mean, look at River Thames at the moment, for example. But Allah here is saying that the rivers of Jannah never be corrupt. They will never be, they will never change in color. They will never change in their taste. And there's going to be rivers of wine which intoxicated that will not bring us harm, and a delight to those that drink, and rivers of pure honey. Honey is very sweet, it's beautiful, it's a delicacy, and some of the more richer forms of honey are really just a delicacy, and just rivers of honey. And within these rivers, think of the trees that grow around the rivers. There will be fruits of every kind. And, and then compare that with those who will be given boiling water, eating from the tree of Zaqqum, being given the remnants of flesh from wounds. Look at that contrast in imagery, subhanallah. And then look at the conversations of Jannah. There will be no idle talk and no sinful talk. No one is going to be gossiping. There will be no idle talk. In fact, what's interesting is that people are going to be remembering their time on this dunya. People will be having discussions about their past life and how they were so worried about displeasing Allah. They would say things like, I did so much in the dunya and I was so worried that Allah was going to be pleased with me. But you know what I did? I tried to be steadfast and I always pray to Allah. So even at the end of that discussion, they pray to Allah. That is what resulted in that. This is praying to Allah, turning back to Allah. That is what gave them this reward. Even in Jannah, they will reflect on their prayer, their worship, their servitude to Allah and to the community. They will discuss this. And this really gives us hope. Honestly, this is just something else, subhanallah. So the believers will be reunited with their relatives despite the nature of their good deeds. So for example, sometimes in our family, we often have this one member of the family who's slightly more, you could argue, righteous, or slightly more on the deen than others. And Allah will be, the relatives will be upgraded to the person of that higher rank, despite the nature of their good deeds. So instead of the people who are on a high rank coming down to visit their relatives, Allah will send the people of the lower rank to go and visit the people of the higher rank, of their relatives. So like when we go to visit, inshallah, when we go to visit our family members who are in different ranks, Allah will take those from the lower to the high. We'll be upgraded, basically. It's like a free upgrade. And we go there and we enjoy the luxuries of that. And then we come back down to our Jannah, which is going to be just as good, inshallah. So, subhanallah, even though our home might be in maybe a slightly lower rank, maybe we might be people of the right hand, may Allah even make us of those. And if we have somebody that we know that's in the Sabiqun from our forefathers or our ancestors, then we can say, I want to go visit so-and-so, and Allah will take us there. Instead of bringing them to us, bringing them lower, we're going higher, inshallah, and enjoying all of their luxuries. It's so beautiful that honestly, it's just a win-win situation all the way around. And before we finish, remember, we take heed from the signs of Allah and the knowledge we have of the hereafter. So all of this is not just for us to have hope and then be scared of the Jahannam, and there is no better surah to remind us of this than Surah Mulk, which is why I want to dedicate the last half an hour or so to just Surah Mulk. That we need to remind ourselves of what Allah is asking of us, the signs of Allah. We need to take heed of that. We need to come back. We need to turn to Allah. Right now, we are not in Jannah. And God forbid we're not in Jahannam right now. but we need to prepare ourselves. We need to understand that when we go away from Ramadan, when we finish all of this, what are we going back to? We will no longer, we might not have this spirituality. What is going to bring the spirituality within us after Ramadan? It will be the signs of Allah. That is what's going to bring us back to Him. It is He who made the earth subservient to you, so transverse in its tracks and partake of the sustenance He has provided. To Him you will be resurrected. And what this means in this ayah, this short background to this, is that the earth has not, the earth is a servant of us. That Allah has made the earth to be a provision for us. And, but these provisions is not something that we ourselves have, is not something that we ourselves should take pride in. This is not something that we have grown. We have not done anything. Allah has created the earth to be of servitude to us. And Allah has arranged it by His wisdom and power that our life in this dunya becomes as good and peaceful as possible. And that we can move anywhere on this earth with a peace of mind. And it has become so vast for us that we can, do anything. Well, we have the luxuries of this dunya, and it provides us with limitless provisions for our sustenance. And then at the end, Allah is saying, but remember, it is going to be to Him that you will be resurrected. Take all of what we want from this dunya. This dunya is made for us. But at the end, we belong to Allah. The earth belongs to Allah. So just because Allah has given us all these luxuries of this dunya does not mean we should take pride in it. Allah then says, do you feel secure that He is in the heaven will not cause the earth to cave in with you? And then suddenly you will begin to rock violently. So what this is also saying is that we should not feel so comfortable on this dunya that we become neglectful of the one who can cause the earth to shake all of a sudden. And do you feel secure that that He who is in the heaven will not let loose upon you a storm of stones? Then shall you know my warning, know what my warning is like. So our survival and well-being on this dunya are dependent on Allah's grace and bounty. We are not on this earth. We are not taking this earth for granted with our own power. We are all indebted, or we are under obligation only to Allah's protection for each moment that we are here. Because at any moment, Allah can all of a sudden cause the earth to rock or let loose upon us a storm of stones. The moment we forget that it is Allah who is in control. Have they not seen birds above them spreading and closing their wings, with none holding them except the merciful one? He oversees anything. Allah keeps things under His guardianship. It is only, this is not necessarily, yes, the parable of birds are given, but it's almost like if Allah can be in control of which bird is flying where and how far this bird is flying, Allah is controlling each one of us. Allah is the one who provides, and He alone keeps watch of everything that we are doing on earth. And everything is provided by Allah for our necessity. Who shall provide for you if He withholds His sustenance? Nay, but they persist in rebellion and aversion. So if all of a sudden Allah takes all of this away, what will become of you if all of a sudden Allah takes away your risk? And subhanAllah, sisters, think about it. Right now, in our current pandemic, with the coronavirus, there are people there who never thought that their businesses might fail, and Allah has withheld their sustenance because of Allah, because Allah has brought upon us the coronavirus. So Allah can do, we often think that, oh, maybe this is just a virus or whatever, but the coronavirus literally happened overnight, didn't it? It was all of a sudden it came to the UK. And we didn't even think, and the next thing you know, businesses are shutting down. Next thing you know, people are getting fed. You know, all of these things. Allah, all of a sudden, who's going to provide for you if Allah withholds His sustenance? But they persist in rebellion and aversion. And what's so important here, sisters, is that when this pandemic blows over, what's going to happen? We're going to go back to our normal selves. We're going to get engrossed in our businesses and our money and making money. We will persist in rebellion and will become diverted. Right now, alhamdulillah, because of Ramadan and because we will be confined to our homes, maybe there's that little bit extra of righteousness that, or iman that we've grown, that little bit of spirituality. But when we're back to work, are we going to continue? That's something to think about. Who is better guided? He who walks groveling on his face, or he who walks upright on a straight path? You know, we're not meant to follow blindly whatever error and deviation we find good on this dunya. You know, a good example of this is Bani Israel. They remember when they saw the calf after they had just seen the miracle of Allah and the sea split, and they saw another town worshipping, or they were passing a town and they saw another people worshipping a calf. And they said, "Oh, Musa, why can't we do this?" They're the types of people who are walking, groveling on his face. They just blindly follow. Who's better? Is it he who walks? You know, if you're head down on the floor, are you going to be able to see what is ahead of you? Will you be able to comprehend what's going around you? No. So Allah is questioning, who's better, the person with his head down or the person who walks upright? Of course, it's going to be the person who walks upright, because they can see anything. They understand what is right, what is wrong. You know, we don't have these ears that we refuse to listen. And we refuse to listen, and we try to distinguish between right or wrong, you know. But at the same time, we still persist in the false notions that we have in our mind. Say, He it is who has brought you into being and has given you hearing and sight and has given you hearts to think and understand. How seldom do you give thanks? So leading on from the previous ayah, it is Allah who is giving us hearing and sight so that we can see the bounties of Allah, but also we can distinguish right from wrong. We can hear right from wrong. And Allah has given us wisdom and knowledge and hearts to think so that we can understand and differentiate between this right and wrong. Because if we don't, we are going to be the people who have our face on the floor, walking, groveling on his face. Say to them, did you even consider if all the water that you have in the wells were to sink down into the depth of the earth, who will produce for you clear flowing water? Is there anyone other than Allah that has the power to restore these springs of water? If all the wells were to sink, who's going to produce clear water? If no one else has this power, sisters, and we all know that no one else does have this power, you know, then it is our own selves that are misguided to think in the way that someone else will produce this water. Think about the example of Ismail and Hajar in a desert. Ismail al-Islam was just kicking out of hunger, out of thirst. And what happened? Allah produced a well in the middle of a desert, completely unheard of. So did you even consider if all the water that we have were to sink down, who's going to produce the water again? And it is Allah, the biggest sign. And finally, before I end, my ayah of the day, inshallah, is from Surah Hashr, is believers, fear Allah and let every person look to what he sends forward for tomorrow. Fear Allah. Allah is well aware of what you do. And look here, Allah mentions fear Allah twice. Wattaqullah, fear Allah. And this doesn't literally mean what is going to happen tomorrow, literally. What are we doing today in our deeds that is going to benefit us in our akhirah? We've learned about about how to respect the Prophet ﷺ, how to declare Allah's glory and mercy, how to declare Allah's perfection, how to be respectful to others. We've been given the commands and we've been given the instruction to be helpers of Allah. We have been given the instruction and the responsibility all as the moderate nation. We have been told about the descriptions of Jannah and Jahannam. We've been given Allah's signs. Have we got enough? Now we need to put all of this into amal. We need to put this into action. We are the best of creation. We are the one creation that has knowledge and choice. Allah has made man to understand what truth is. We know right from wrong. Allah has told us right from wrong. So we need to now understand, and we need to be conscious. Do I have enough today? Am I investing enough in this dunya so that my akhirah is secure? So that I have enough deeds in the akhirah? That I have enough, think of it as almost like, you know, when you get your pension. Why do you get pension? When you're working, you get a pension because your pension is taken out of your earnings, because when you reach old age and you retire, you'll get some of that money back in your old age, right? This is exactly that. Are we saving up our pension at the moment so that when we get to Akhirah, those deeds will come back to us? And they are the ones that are going to take us to Jannah, inshallah. Fear Allah. Allah is well aware of what we do. Have taqwa of Allah. Allah hears, knows, and sees everything. So we need to, be conscious of the actions that we are doing. We need to make sure that we are investing enough. Our good deeds are an investment because they are going to only help us. But those good deeds need to be with a good, sincere intention, knowing Allah can watch us, knowing that we fear Allah, and knowing that Allah is aware of everything that we do. So let's go back to what Sister Saba was saying. Where do I stand in the Quran? We've covered a lot in the last 2 days. But from this, where do we stand? Are we hypocrites? Are we those who don't understand social etiquettes? Are we those who are preventing ourselves from investing in the way of Allah? Are we those who are righteous? Are we those people, inshallah, the right hand? Are we those who constantly remember Allah? Are we those who are doing good deeds for the hope that they are going to be beneficial to us in the Akhirah? Or are we going to be those people who take no regard of Jama'ah, who don't understand the purpose of working together as one, who want to create divisions in our society, who want to cause mischief, who want to conspire? There's a lot of questions here. There's a lot of unanswered questions. We really, sisters, I can't stress enough, we have to really take heed of everything. A bit like yesterday's Eye of the Day. Has the time not come? And I'm going to ask you again, has the time not come that now is the time? It's never too late. We can start our investment package from now. We can still do it. Because if you have sincere intention, and if Allah chooses to take your life, then at least we had the intention. At least we can stand in front of Allah and say, Allah, we had the intention of doing that. We had the intention of investing into this dunya society. May Allah make us of those who are of the people of the Sabiqun, of the people of the right hand, and save us from the atrocities of Jahannam. Jazakallah khair wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Everything that I've said today is from Allah, and every mistake that I've made or everything wrong that I've said is from my own self, and may Allah erase it from your memories. Wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr.